I kind of wanted to go through this Hedera news because I think this is kind of interesting. So Hedera has been getting a lot of criticism lately, and the president of Hedera actually addressed some of the concerns that people have, which I think is always really awesome to see. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so this is from Charles Atkins, who is the president of Hedera. I think he's following me, is he? No, there's another big guy on Hedera that is following me, but dear Hedera community, at Hedera, we have always strived to build a network that is innovative, inclusive, and transparent. The journey has been marked by significant achievements driven by collective efforts of dedicated builders, developers, and community members. However, we acknowledge that recent events and systematic inefficiencies caused by legacy structures have led to concerns about transparency, accountability, and the strategic direction of competitiveness of the Hedera ecosystem. It is with a deep sense of responsibility and commitment that I aim to address these issues head on. Now, I like when people just flat out say, "Hey, we know there's some bad stuff going on, and we're going to fix it." I've received a ton of valuable feedback from our community, highlighting several areas where we need to improve, some of which I also identified early on in my tenure here. I've already shared ideas and collaborated with many of you, as well as the Hedera board, and how we can do better. And we have been working to improve daily. This community feedback has been well received, and more often than not, we agree with the community feedback. Before going into the key concerns, I thought it'd be helpful to say a bit about decentralization. Decentralization is a key principle of Web3 projects and also important for surviving this challenging regulatory environment. In 2021-2022, Hedera took a number of significant steps to further the decentralization of the Hedera network and related ecosystem. The steps include funding independent ecosystem development foundations like the HBAR Foundation and the Hashgraph Association, and the departure of the founding management and development teams over to Swirl Labs. Each of those entities is independent from Hedera, and Hedera does not control them. While many in the Hedera community understand what decentralization means, sometimes we hear requests for Hedera to do something that Hedera itself cannot do, and instead it's only within the control of a different organization and its board. And that's kind of the trade-off with decentralization. So yeah, John from Non-Fungible Domains and I went back and forth on this a little bit. You know, I personally don't think decentralization is at the extreme end is the key. I think moving toward more decentralization is a good thing, right? So I think there's a balance somewhere between centralized and decentralized. And I think these are good steps, and stuff like governance structures can help, but it has to be, I think obviously you can't have everything being decided by people, because let's be honest, we don't, I've been studying this stuff for a while, and I wouldn't feel comfortable making decisions on some of the technical stuff, right? Maybe there could be like a technical team. It's like, how do you manage this? There has to be some way to manage this. So, all right, so he talks about transparency and accountability. There have been legitimate concerns about the transparency of our governance and Hedera's ability to have proper oversight of and require transparency from ecosystem partners in the way they choose to operate. I hear this a lot, actually, because people, the governance council is kind of hand-selected amongst big companies to start off with, and they also run the nodes. I think that's actually a good thing, because when you have Boeing and you have LG and you have Google running nodes on Hedera and participating in it, that means you have the businesses in Web 2 and Web 1, and kind of outside of that as well. I mean, LG, I don't think is a web business really. Maybe you could argue that everybody's a web business now, but I think that's really important to have them participate in your blockchain. That's a big deal. Anyway, it says trust and transparency are the cornerstones of our community, and we recognize the need to strengthen these areas. There should be some mutual understanding within the community, however, that not every single bit of information can be shared in real time, both to protect the market integrity and also to respect certain confidentiality obligations. In addition, while respecting their independence, Hedera plans to take steps to work more closely with ecosystem partners to deliver greater transparency and accountability within the ecosystem more broadly. Excessive compensation concerns. Reports of seemingly excessive payouts to HBAR Foundation executives and the lack of clear communication from the HBAR Foundation following these reports have clearly eroded trust. This also occurred during a time when the network has not gained the traction we hoped for internally, nor lived up to the expectations of the community. Though Hedera does not set or control compensation for employees of other independent organizations within the ecosystem, we have been in the process of requesting more information about compensation from the HBAR Foundation on our other grant recipients and partners. Now, this is something that I think came up too with the Algorand Foundation. There's concerns about the burn rate and the fact that they're not making very much on the, from transactions. So the idea that they're basically not sustainable right now. They're definitely deficit spending, and someday that they'll just simply run out of money. That's a certainty. There's talk about raising the fees and stuff, but also like it's a challenge because you want to bring the best people. There's a lot of competition for some of the top people in the cryptocurrency space, but at the same time, like obviously you have to keep your spending under control too. So it's a challenge. I understand the pressure they're under. It's easy to like criticize some of the stuff from the outside, and we should be mindful of this stuff. But anyway, we are also conducting our own internal review to ensure Hedera's compensation structures align with our values, are connected to true performance, and are in the best interests of our mission to maintain and grow the Hedera network. As you know, the Hedera network has a decentralized ecosystem made up of various independent organizations. As such, the responsibility for each organization's operational integrity generally tests with such organization's own corporate governance practices. This guy's really like being awfully wordy. So basically they're saying, we can't control how much these other company, these because it's decentralized, we can't control if the Hedera, the HBAR Foundation decides to, have really high compensation. That's up to them. That's part of decentralization, but also like you can say we don't agree with it. So he says, I truly understand that there has been a disconnect and we aim to bridge this gap. And talking about communication, well, we'll just start. Okay, effective communication with Hedera network builders and end users is essential. I truly understand that there has been a disconnect and we aim to bridge this gap and foster a more collaborative environment. We are currently in the process of exploring ways in which interested companies and possibly individuals who do not meet full governing council requirements can participate in some of our newly formed working groups and innovation summits. Yeah, so I would say they really got to get it's fine to start out with that governing council, but they got to start working to get away from that. I think that's fair. So anyway, they're working on that program. So he says he's taking action to restore trust and enhance transparency. He also says that some of the issues that he said he would look into turned out to be a little more nuanced and complex than he initially assumed. Yeah, that happens. Well, that's part of my concerns with when we talk about governance. Like, I think governance has a place, but it can't be everything, because most stuff, and I found this out from covering government. A lot of stuff, you think, well, why are they doing that? Why don't they just do this? It seems simple, but then you actually learn about the issue and you learn it's way more complex than you thought. This is interesting. We are conducting a thorough review of compensation practices at Hedera and encouraging the boards at other leading ecosystem organizations to do the same. This includes aligning executive compensation with performance metrics that genuinely reflect the health and growth of the ecosystem. So they're kind of working, this is really long-winded. So anyway, they're revitalizing their marketing strategy. So this is something that Algorand went to as well. Like they just kind of, in fact here, Hedera has historically been seen as an enterprise first project, which I think is how Algorand kind of saw itself too. But as he says, while this stands true, we also understand the importance of individual user and their ability to use the same powerful network. Going forward, our marketing efforts will showcase high visibility and updated content that resonates with Web3 users, or developers, users, and enthusiasts. I am personally committed to making Hedera a household name in the industry and the network that individual developers and enterprises alike are excited to build on. This was the big thing for Algorand too. Algorand went through the same thing. And you saw that commercial they made recently where they talked about like actual user experiences and what they would be like shopping at a grocery store using something that's based on Algorand versus Solana versus Ethereum and Bitcoin. And that kind of stuff, it matters. Like, you can't ignore this stuff. When I was at Decipher in 2022, Sean Ford, who was the CEO of Algorand Inc. at the time, said in this Twitter Spaces that I was in, it was kind of like a live Twitter Spaces. So we were all in a room at Decipher. doing the spaces out to the community. And he said, like, yeah, we just think the best tech will win. And I was like, yeah, well, that's not really how it works. You have to market, especially in the crypto space. And I think Algorand has finally got it. Sounds like Hedera's kind of figuring it out too. And then he basically talks about how he's going to try to improve communication. Is going to begin hosting a regular cadence of X Spaces and LinkedIn Lives to invite builders and community members to participate. Schedule is being worked on now, and should be releasing it in 3 weeks. So we're going to get more X Spaces from Hedera, and I hope they're recorded too. And it just kind of ends like, thanks for the messages. Thanks for your dedication to Hedera. So how did people respond to this? It says, nice article, Karate Combat, next live event is July 25th. Now, see, this is why I think this Karate Combat partnership was super good for Hedera. It was a great idea. Your Uncle Bud says, individuals who do not meet full governing council requirements can participate in some of our newly formed working groups and innovation summits. Can you release any names for us? We haven't opened the applications for them yet or finished the final guidelines, but we have seen many businesses and community groups want to join in all Hedera processes, so we want to make that happen. Yeah, I think that's what we want to see. We want to see more of this stuff start opening up to the community. So it was a little, it could have been a little written a little tighter, I think, but I think it's good to see. It's good to see Hedera actually responding to the community, addressing the community, and saying, "Hey, we're going to try to do better. We're going to try to like fix some of this stuff around transparency." I thought the compensation stuff was interesting because, yeah, it is pretty tough. It's tough to go. It's tough because you want the best people and you are competing with other. Government does this too. Government has the same problem where they're competing with the private sector, but also they want to be responsible taxpayer dollars. So it's a real push-pull, and I can kind of recognize the issue that they're in. But above and beyond that, I think, yeah, finding more ways to involve the community, because I didn't have a problem with it starting with the governance council and having some of these big companies involved. I think that's really positive when especially if you're an enterprise focused cryptocurrency like Hedera. But eventually you definitely want to rope in the regular folks. I think that's really important.